Usually, when someone does something awful, they're flying solo, but every now and then, you stumble upon a whole family involved in some serious trouble. Some of these situations end up as crimes, while others are just the result of actions that were always going to end badly. When it comes to family, loyalty runs deep. It can make them a formidable team, whether it's for good or for bad. Family ties are strong, and sometimes they're soaked in blood. Let's take a journey from the wild American frontier to far-off lands like Central Asia, even stopping by an ordinary house in rural England. Along the way, we'll meet some of the most notorious families in history. Their reasons for their actions might just surprise you. Number 10. The Borgias. When talking about seriously bad families, you can't leave out the Borgias. Originally from Spain, they made a big splash in the political and religious scene of the 15th century, always hungry for more power. They even had two popes in the family, Calixtus Roman III and Alexander Roman VI. But the one who really sticks in people's minds is Lucretia. Lucretia, the daughter of Pope Alexander, was basically used as a pawn by her family for their own gain. They married her off multiple times to strengthen their hold on things. People back then saw the Borgias as ruthless. They'd do anything to get what they wanted. Rumors flew about adultery, theft, bribery, even incest and murder during Alexander's time as pope. But you know how it is when your powerful enemies come out of the woodwork. Some historians think a lot of those wild stories were just made up by jealous rivals. And hey, it's not all bad. The Borgias were actually big supporters of the arts. Number 9. Inessa Tarverdieva and family. Moving closer to our time, let's meet Inessa Tarverdieva, her husband Roman Podkapiv, and their two daughters, Victoria and Anastasia. Inessa was older than Roman, and Victoria was her daughter from a previous relationship. Anastasia was just 13 years old. They lived in a cozy home in Russia's Stavropol district. Inessa worked as a nursery school teacher, while Roman was a dentist. Surprisingly, money wasn't their motive when they started a spree of killings and robberies in 27. Their cover? Innocent camping trips. But behind the scenes, they were breaking into homes, killing anyone inside, and grabbing whatever caught their eye. Sometimes they took things of little value, maybe just as trophies. Some of their crimes were truly horrifying. Once, they tortured and killed two teenage girls after gouging their eyes out. Inessa had a particular vendetta against cops, likely due to a bad relationship with one in the past. Finally, in 2013, the authorities caught up with them. We'll never know the full extent of the havoc the Tarverdieva family caused. Number 8. The Bean Clan. Scotland, with its misty hills and hidden glens, holds more than just natural beauty. It's a land of secrets. Back in the 16th century, a man named Alexander Bean and his partner, Black Agnes Douglas, found refuge in a secluded sea cave. There, they started a family, through incest. Their clan, eventually reaching around 45 members, struggled to find work. So, they resorted to a gruesome survival tactic, ambushing and devouring travelers. Only operating under cover of darkness, they'd retreat to their cave by day, feasting on their unfortunate victims. Even locals remained unaware of the clan's existence, allowing them to terrorize the area for a shocking 25 years, claiming the lives of perhaps 1,000 people. When authorities finally caught up with them, the punishment was brutal: castration, dismemberment, and burning alive. The tale of the Beans first surfaced in the Newgate Calendar, an 18th century publication that showcased sensational crimes. While it may have embellished some details, there's usually a grain of truth to these stories. After all, they say where there's smoke, there's fire. Number 7. The Bloody Benders. Back in the 1870s, weary travelers trekking along the Great Osage Trail might have stumbled upon a humble cabin in Labette County, Kansas, built by the Bender family. Little did they know, for some unfortunate souls, stopping for supplies and a meal there would mark their last moments. Picture this: diners sitting innocently with their backs turned to a curtain, unaware of the horror lurking behind it. Suddenly, a Bender would emerge, wielding a sledgehammer, and that would be the end. The exact number of victims remains a mystery, as does the motive. Was it robbery or simply a sick thrill? As suspicion grew among the locals, the Benders vanished without a trace, leaving behind unanswered questions. But strangely, not long after their disappearance, another family, the Kellys, appeared in Kansas. And shockingly, they too embarked on a deadly spree. Coincidence, or were they somehow connected to the infamous Benders? Number 6. Fred and Rose West. In this world, there are some people who do such terrible things that it's hard to understand why. Fred West was definitely one of them. Over 2 decades, from 1967 to 1987, he committed at least 12 murders. All his victims were young women, and his wife, Rose, joined in on many of the crimes, though it seems she was under Fred's spell. Their twisted motive: sexual satisfaction. They took pleasure in tormenting and assaulting their helpless victims in their small house in Gloucester, England. Rose even resorted to prostitution, all at Fred's suggestion, to make extra money. Fred's story took a dark turn when he took his own life in prison in 1995, saving taxpayers the trouble of a trial. But Rose remains behind bars, serving her sentence. Number 5. The Hart Brothers. Meet the Hart Brothers, Micajah and Wiley, the infamous duo who struck fear into settlers living in the wild lands beyond the Appalachian Mountains right after the American Revolution. While most folks were celebrating victory, these two had other plans. Having sided with the British during the war, they decided to head west after their defeat. But instead of starting fresh, they survived by robbing and murdering the settlers trying to build a new life in the region. And it seemed they got a sick thrill out of it. Their reign of terror didn't last long, though. Soon enough, brave vigilantes set out to bring them to justice. Micajah met his end in a shootout with a posse in Weather 799, while Wiley managed to escape. But his luck ran out when authorities caught up with him and gave him the ultimate punishment in 1804, the hangman's noose. Number 4. Shaka. Shaka Zulu's family were once chiefs of the Zulu clan, but they weren't all that important until Shaka came along. He changed everything. Slowly but surely, he built up his power until he was the undisputed ruler. And let me tell you, he was a force to be reckoned with. Shaka's warriors were like nothing anyone had ever seen before. Even the British, with all their fancy technology, were scared of them. These Zulu fighters moved fast, followed orders without hesitation, and showed no mercy to their enemies. They were a force of nature. Shaka didn't mess around when it came to obedience. Anyone who crossed him faced brutal consequences. Sometimes, he'd even have their families killed just to make a point. It was harsh, but that's how he ruled. Some folks argue whether Shaka was a cruel dictator or a hero who shaped a nation. But in the end, it was his own family who brought him down. After his mother passed away, he started acting strange, making his people suffer with demanding rituals. And in 1828, his own half-brothers took him out. Despite it all, many Zulu people today still admire Shaka. He may have been tough, but he gave them something to be proud of. Number 3. The Cray Twins. Meet Ronnie and Reggie Cray, the tough-as-nails identical twins who ran the show in London's East End during the swinging 60s. From humble beginnings, they built a criminal empire fueled by armed robbery and shady deals. And they didn't shy away from violence. Arson, beatings, and even murder were all part of their game. But here's the twist. Despite their criminal ways, the Crays were like local heroes to many. They weren't just feared, they were respected. Ordinary folks saw them as protectors, keeping the streets safe and solving problems for those in need. And they weren't just local legends, they hung out with the big shots of the time, rubbing elbows with celebrities. Their reign didn't last long, though. The police finally caught up with them in 1968, putting an end to their empire. Ronnie ended up in a high-security psychiatric hospital, where he passed away in 1995. Reggie, too, met his end in 2000, just weeks after being released from prison due to illness. Number 2. The Gonzalez Sisters. From 1945 to 1964, the Gonzalez sisters ran a booming business that unfortunately thrived on a grim demand: sex. Their brothel, Rancho El Angel in Guanajuato, Mexico, was the heart of their large-scale prostitution network. But here's the dark truth. Many of the women who worked there didn't have a choice. Some were kidnapped, while others were tricked into coming under false pretenses. And if they didn't cooperate willingly, the sisters forced them to take drugs like heroin. The life of a prostitute is already tough, but for these women, it was even worse. When they couldn't meet the demands of their clients anymore, the sisters would kill them. And if a client had a lot of money, they might suffer the same fate, with their cash stolen. When the police finally raided the brothel, they uncovered a horrific scene: the bodies of 80 women, 11 men, and even fetuses. And who knows how many more victims were never found. The courts didn't take it lightly. The sisters got slapped with 40 years in prison. Guinness World Records even labeled them the most deadly duo. Number 1. Genghis Khan's clan. Genghis Khan's journey from a nobody on the Mongolian plains to the ruler of the world's largest empire is nothing short of epic. In Mongol society, family was everything, and Genghis' sons and grandsons carried on his legacy, expanding the empire from the Black Sea to the Pacific Ocean. Despite being outnumbered, the Mongols conquered with their clever tactics and psychological warfare. If you surrendered, life under Mongol rule was pretty good. But if you dared to resist, well, let's just say it wasn't pretty. Once the Mongols took charge, though, things were generally safe and orderly. For many, life under Mongol rule was an improvement. They had more freedom, especially when it came to religion. But there was a dark side. Some say that as much as 11% of the world's population lost their lives because of the Mongol conquest. So while the Mongols brought stability, it came at a steep cost. Thanks for joining us on this fascinating journey through history's darkest chapters, where we uncovered the top 10 deadliest families. From ruthless rulers to notorious criminals, these families left an indelible mark on the annals of time with their tales of power, violence, and tragedy. As we reflect on their legacies, let us remember the lessons they teach us about the extremes of human nature and the consequences of unchecked power. And while their stories may chill us to the bone, they also serve as a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring quest for justice. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more intriguing content. And be sure to let us know in the comments which deadly family shocked you the most. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.